all have good answers.
I mean, we should all have good questions.
Well said. Well said. So, we're learning the laws of Purim, getting ready. 30 days before. It's officially time. We started yesterday, the chapter 16, Mitzvot of Joy and Kindness, and the Su'udah. And now, the general idea really, that it's a time of great joy, physically expressed in the mundane material world as well. And this idea of Jewish unity we spoke about last time. So let's get into the nitty-gritty, the details of Matanot Le'Evyonim, how much tzedakah you have to give really, and how. And then we'll Mishloch Manot, and then we'll see all the details. Bezrat Hashem. Good morning. And we'll also see the details of the Su'udah afterwards. And the big question that everybody wants to know is, how much do I have to drink? And then as an extension of that, we'll get into the question of the costumes and all the fun stuff. But let's start with Matanot Le'Evyonim. The hard stuff is you got to open up your pocketbook. You got to open up your checkbook. Whoever writes checks anymore. Bit. Nowadays, it's in Israel. It's the Bit is the most popular online app for an app for transferring funds from, person to person. Yeah. Right. Let's open up page 341, chapter 16, section 3, in Rav Melamed's book of Zmanim. Matanot Le'Evyonim. Thomas, why don't you start us off?
Yeah. Matanot Le'Evyonim. It's a mitzvah for each and every Jew to give Matanot Le'Evyonim on Purim. In order to fulfill this mitzvah, one must give a minimum of 2 gifts, one each to 2 poor people. But it's praiseworthy to give more.
So, that's already the first difference between the regular mitzvah of tzedakah and the mitzvah of Matanot Le'Evyonim, which means gifts to the poor. Well, what is tzedakah if not gifts to the poor? Well, the answer is you can give tzedakah any day as much as you want, or as little as you want, to as many people as you want. Here it's mandated. On the day of Purim, we're going to see that detail in a few minutes. On the day of Purim, you have to give tzedakah to at least 2 people. It's not enough to give tzedakah to one person and say, oh, okay, I gave a gift to the poor. Because it's the language in the Megillah the rabbis learned is in plural. Matanot is plural. And Le'Evyonim is plural. So at least the minimum of plural is 2. So you have to give to at least 2 poor people. Go ahead.
The gift may be money or a food item, but not clothing or books. As some say that the gifts must be items that one can enjoy at Purim Suda. As such, one should give food, items or money that can be used to purchase food, while the gift must be something that contributes to the Purim feast. The poor person may do with the gift as he pleases. He is not obligated to use the gift specifically as part of his Purim feast. Each gift must be worth the amount of money that could be used to purchase ordinary fruits that would satiate a person eating a small simple meal, for example a sandwich. To discharge one's obligation, one can give an amount of money that would purchase about 3 slices of bread for each gift. In Israel it is about 1 shekel. This amount of bread is approximately equivalent to the volume of 3 hecks, which is enough to minimally satisfy a person. However, giving more, Matanot Le'Evyonim, is praiseworthy.
So according to this, how much do you have to... A shekel.
2 shekels.
2 shekels. 1 to 1 poor person, and another one to another poor person. Very simple.
I don't think you can buy 3 slices of bread with 1 shekel.
I think you can. Yeah, if you buy a whole loaf for 6 shekels, so divide that up, and each 3...
You need to buy the whole pack.
I know. I usually use the rule of thumb that, if you want to buy someone a meal, so in Israel, a falafel. How much is a falafel?
10 shekels.
You can get 10, you can get 15, whatever. It's a gift, 10, 15 shekels. That's a gift. It has to be a meal. That's the equivalent of a meal, the amount of money that he would need to. But technically, 3 slices of bread is volume of 3 eggs, maybe a little bit less, but it doesn't have to be a lot of money. Go ahead.
One may not count Matanus Levionim toward the Maser Kesefim, he hopes, as one may not fulfill this obligation with money that is anyway required to give to charity. However, one may set aside the minimum amount of money per gift, and then have to add to and increase the sum which Maser Kesefim money.
So we mentioned this, I think, last time, that there is another custom or obligation, it's a whole other discussion, to give 1/10 of your income to tzedakah. There's a debate about whether it's actually an obligation or just a good custom. It's a very ancient custom, we said last time. Who remembers what was the first person who said he's going to give 1/10 of his money and his possessions? Nope. To God.
I do have a question.
What was the answer to this first? It was Yaakov. Yaakov says that when he's traveling, he says, if you bring me back home, I'll give aser nulach, whatever. I'll give 1/10, aser, 1/10.
I think Abraham did then of something.
He gave a gift to Melchizedek when he came back from fighting. Melchizedek came out to meet him. Gave him. I don't know if he gave him 1/10 though. I don't think it says necessarily.
No, I think
If I tell him aser call, you're right. He also gave 1/10, right? Good point. Okay, well taken. Avram as well as Yaakov. Yeah, I'll give 1/10. But again, that doesn't necessarily translate to an obligation. But this is what he's saying, that if you do want to keep this custom, this obligation to give 1/10, as you should, to charity, with all the parameters, we'll learn another time about the parameters about exactly this custom of giving 1/10 to charity, you don't use that money for mitzvot. The mitzvot should come from your own money, from your own pocket, not from the tzedakah fund pocket. So the truth is, a lot of people go around on Purim collecting money, poor people, look forward to this day because they can cash in. And, so you can fulfill the mitzvah by giving them a shekel or 2 shekels. But it's become really a day of giving. So you can use, after you've given a shekel, not from the Maaser Ksafim money, and you can give the amount, whatever amount you want, add from your Maaser Ksafim. There's nothing wrong with giving Maaser Ksafim on Purim. It's just not right to fulfill your mitzvah of the first 2 gifts that you're obligated to give on Purim. That shouldn't be from Maaser Ksafim money. I hope that's clear. Yeah.
Does the 10% come from before or after I make my deductions for taxes?
Exactly. That's the type of questions which we get into when we learn the laws of Maaser Ksafim.
Does the money that goes to social
good question.
Social programs,
yes.
Does that count as tzedakah?
That's right. Well, definitely. I think there's good room to make that claim in Israel, when a lot of your taxes go to support social services in Israel for poor people, and so.
How much goes to Social Security in America these days?
I don't know.
Pretty decent chunk. Can't tell you the number.
Yeah, because of Corona, you're saying they upped a lot. They've been giving out a lot of money. Anyways, that's another discussion of Maaser Ksafim. For Matanot Levionim, we use other monies. Okay, what is a poor person? How poor do you have to be? Yes, Ravi.
The tzedakah we give need to come from our own money. So just imagine you give me 100 shekels, like here you have. This is not the money I can use to give tzedakah?
No, I don't agree. When someone gives you a gift, please sit down. Whenever someone gives you a gift, it becomes yours.
Okay.
And so then you can give it to someone else as you please, or keep it.
How big is our duty to give every day tzedakah?
I know of no such obligation. I mean, there is a custom that you put a few pennies into the tzedakah box during the davening. You've seen maybe people do that. Certain spots in davening where it's a good custom. They say that
every morning.
Excellent. It's lovely. It's a beautiful custom, especially since it trains you to be giving. Right? What's better, if you have $100, to give it all in one shot, or to give $1 a day for 100 days? At the end of the day, you're giving the same amount to the poor people. So exactly equivalent. The difference is only the subjective experience. I think probably your muscle will get stronger. Your muscle of giving will get stronger if you give 100 times than if you give once. And so that's where this custom comes. That's where this custom comes that try to give a little bit every day, put in the tzedakah box. And it also adds up. It also adds up to be a nice sum. If you don't give, and then you say, oh, at the end I'll give 100, maybe you won't give the 100 at the end. And so giving every day is a good custom, but it's not obligated. There's no specific time frame where you have to give tzedakah.
But I think when we wake up, we need to have this thinking about today I need to do at least one mitzvah.
Beautiful. It's a good idea.
When you do this,
Not an obligation, though.
not about
You're going to do
money,
lots
but-
of mitzvot, hopefully, every day. But
Tzedakah-
giving tzedakah every day is a lovely custom, yes.
Tzedakah reminds you that anything that you own, you don't actually own, because there's nothing that you really
It's
own.
not your money.
Sweet.
It all belongs to Hashem.
Okay, well said. That's a good
Yes,
question,
yes.
David, yeah.
I have a question. So what does a very poor person does? Like, for example, a homeless person, he doesn't have anything. He's not exempt from the mitzvah, isn't he?
We'll get to it. He's going to talk about it. Okay, an evyon. Right, it says matanot le'evyonim. Evyon is a fancy word for ani. You know the word for poor. I'll put it on the board so that you learn a little Hebrew at the same time. Ani, with an ayin, and that means poor. And the word we're using now is evyon, which also means poor. So we have two words. The same thing. What's the difference? So this word comes from, it has in here the root aleph bet hey, which has the same root as the word you may know as ta'ava. Ta'ava means desire. And a poor person is always has a desire because he's lacking. So an evyon is somebody who is always desiring because he just doesn't have enough. So it's sort of a more descriptive way. It's a synonym essentially for taf, aleph, vav, hey. Yes, ta'ava, right? Ta'ev. Generally, sometimes we speak about ta'ava as being a bad character trait. You're not supposed to be. In Yiddish, they pronounce it taiva. Taiva is desires, like
Yes.
evil desires. Desires. You have a taiva for, a piece of chocolate cake is the classic example, or forbidden woman, right? So that's desire. In this context, there's nothing bad about it. We're just saying that a person is constantly desirous. It's a way it's used. It's another form of saying the word poor. So in the Megillah, it says matanot, gifts, le evyonim, plural. So how do you define somebody who is an evyon? What is an evyon? Let's read in the middle of page 342. Renan, will you read for us a little bit, please?
342. Where is it?
An evyon, third paragraph.
Evyon is defined by halakha as a poor person who has insufficient funds for his family essential needs, as defined by by the time and place in which he lives. There were times when a person who had bread to eat and 2 sets of clothes was not considered poor. Whereas today, even one who has 4 sets of clothes and bread and cheese to eat, it's considered poor. One may give matanot la evyonim even to a poor child, and on a condition that he's sufficiently intelligent not to lose the money. If one gives the equivalent of 2 gifts to a poor couple, he fulfills his obligation to give a minimum of 2 gifts. Similarly, if one gives the equivalent of 2 gifts to a widow and her young son who is dependent on her, he fulfills his obligation. However, one who gives 2 gifts to a single poor person does not fulfill his obligation, even if he gives the gift one after the another, because one must give 2 poor people. To 2 poor people. Continue.
Okay, yeah, keep going.
If one does not know 2 poor people, or if he is embarrassed to give them gifts, he should give his matanot la evyonim to a reputable Gabbai Tzedakah, church fund manager, to distribute the poor on his behalf. The Gabbai must attempt to give these gifts to the poor in a way that will enhance their joy at the pouring meal.
So this is quite common. It's usually the way I do it because where I live, not too many homeless people in the street. Luckily in Israel too, there's not too many homeless people. Apparently if you go to India, you can't walk 2 meters, in Delhi without tripping over somebody. They're just living in the street. Also, different places around the world where people, it's very easy to find people that are poor. Last time I was there, it wasn't so bad, but apparently in Israel, there's something called Bituach Leumi, Social Security, which takes care of, and I heard this from the head of Bituach Leumi in Israel. It's the largest budget in the country, by the way. Of the government budget, the largest pie, except for security, goes to Social Security. And he said our goal is just so that people will have enough money, at the very least, to not be on the street, to survive. Not enough to live too respectably, but for all intents and purposes, it works. For the most part, people are not on the street in Israel, and people do have enough to eat. Although, of course, people have a hard time. A lot of people have a hard time making ends meet, as they say. In Israel, since the salaries are usually given out monthly, and people think in those terms, in terms of their budget. So there's an expression in Hebrew called not to be able to close the month. Ligmor et hachodesh. Because if you get your salary in the beginning of the month, you start spending your money. After 2 weeks, all the money's gone. 3 weeks, all the money's gone. What are you going to do for the last week? So people, it's a big uproar in the government. It could be the government will fall because of these issues that people feel we work hard and we don't get enough salary. The salaries are, the incomes are not high enough to match the standard of living. And so in that case, as he was saying, it really depends on where you live. If the standard of living is higher and you don't have enough money to ligmor et hachodesh, to finish off the month, then you're considered to be poor. As a matter of fact, there's a horrible custom in Israel, which really needs a lot of education to wean people away from this. It's called minus. You know what that is?
Which context is this?
Minus means minus.
I
In what context is it?
Oh, debt.
So it's called overdraft in English. And most banks around in America that I know of, they don't let you go into overdraft unless you ask special permission or you have some reason or so forth. But in Israel, it's standard. As a matter of fact, if you don't want to have this, it's called a misgeret. It's a framework for going into overdraft. Then you have to, beg them to not allow you to go into overdraft, because overdraft is like this really stupid. I'll just explain it and I'll take your question. It's really stupid because essentially it's a loan. When you go into minus, and it was your bank accounts, you can withdraw funds even though you don't have enough funds in there, and they'll just essentially loan you the funds at a very high interest rate. If you were to take a proper loan, they'd give you a normal interest rate, but the overdraft, since there's no form signed and they don't know when you're going to pay it back, and could be forever, they charge a very high interest rate. And a lot of Israelis, unfortunately, they get into a cycle of just constantly being minus. Some people are minus 1,000 shekels. Some people are minus 10,000 shekels. Sometimes there's a lot of government regulations now which limit the banks. They say you can't allow somebody to be more than 10,000 shekels or minus, more than the standard framework. All this is of course very stupid because there's always a limit to the framework too. So if you're gonna always try to be above minus 10, might as well try to be above 0, and then you won't be paying any interest, right? Because every day that you're below 0, you're paying interest for no good reason. And so it's a lot of psychology involved, but it's very common in Israel that people are in minus in the bank because they just, they have expenses, they don't have enough income. And halachically, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said anybody who's in minus is halachically considered to be poor. And this is a big part of educating people, I think, to not be in minus, because do you want to consider yourself poor? I mean, someone could give you a gift on poor. I mean, he'd be fulfilling his obligation to give money to the poor. Well, I'm not poor. I have a lot of money in the. I don't have a lot of money in the bank, but I have a lot of possessions. I eat well. I go out. I do what I need to do. But yeah, if you're not making ends meet, you're considered halachically to be poor. So that's good. It's not good to be poor. So one should learn. We should be teaching our students as well, young students, how to manage their money, so that they don't use this stupid system. And of course, they should also learn how to get a job and how to get a profession, so they can support themselves. Not everybody is going to be supported by their father-in-law. So there is this concept that the father-in-law wants the chatan to be a Torah scholar, so he pays the money. Yeah, Moshe, and I'll take your questions.
I hear, I don't know if this is true, that like basically all Israeli credit cards are not actually credit cards; they're just charge cards, where you have to. Doesn't matter how much is on the card, you have to pay it off at the end of every month.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. That's part of the contract agreement. Anyway,
Correct.
One of my questions is, there's some Talmidim here at this yeshiva who are here at an extreme discount. They don't have, or some of them are here for free. They don't have any income.
Mm-hmm.
They have very little in their bank accounts. I mean, like all their meals are taken care of. Obviously.
So if their meals, if their meals are, if you don't need money, if you're in a situation where you have everything taken care of, then you're not considered poor.
They don't have, even if they don't have like any disposable income.
Correct. If you have 3 meals a day and you have a shelter and you have clothing, I don't think you're considered poor. If you have somebody else that you need to support and you can't support them, then that's something else. But David, you want to ask?
Yeah, the question, like, this also is equally applicable for like private loans, like kind of friends, of course. Like if
you owe a lot of money, are you considered poor? Is that your question?
Yeah, generally, like we have like loan money, for example, the bank.
Yeah.
Also, like if you have a friend who loans.
I understand. Yeah, no. If you have debts and you're paying them off slowly, that doesn't make you necessarily poor. So as long as you can afford to, to pay for your standard of living and pay off the loan over the course of time, that's standard part of business. No, that would not be considered poor.
So another thing is like, I don't know how it's in Israel, but for example in Germany, it's like it's very common to buy stuff, like some expensive cars and stuff like that on what's
credit.
called? Leasing, kind of leasing, like you pay it off monthly.
Right, that doesn't make you poor. That's just it's a loan. It's a loan. As long as you're paying it off. If you don't have enough to pay it off, that's something else. If you don't have enough. If that's the standard of living that's normal in that country, then you're poor. You're poor if you can't afford things. So getting back to what we learned, that I usually don't have poor people outside my door, lying in the street. So it can actually, the truth is I know some people that are not making ends meet, as they say, and they don't have enough to support their family. So you can go over to them and give them the money, but it might embarrass them, you might be embarrassed. So it's quite common that we use a third party. Third party is a Gabbai Tzedakah. Gabbai Tzedakah is basically a charity funds where you give them their money. They know the people that are needy, and on the day of Purim, they'll go and give the money for you. So nowadays, the simplest way to do Matanot Yevanim is you call up or you go on the internet and your credit card, you give them the money to this funds. There's so many, unfortunately, because there's so many needy people, there's so many charity funds, and they each will commit. You have to ask. You have to tell them, I want you to distribute my funds on Purim day. And that's the way you fulfill your mitzvah. Even though you never see a poor person whatsoever, your funds get to the poor person on Purim. That's kosher. Okay? Yes, Amos?
I have a question. That means you need to give it on the day of Purim?
Correct. Ideally, it's both. You should give it and it should be received on the day.
If you have you know about someone who is in need and you don't want to embarrass him and that Rabbi didn't know about him at all, and you are focusing on him to give it to him, you can put it in an envelope and give it like in the post box or something.
Well, yeah, you have to make sure that the post gets there on the day that you want. In his door. Yeah. It can be anonymous. Correct. It can be anonymous. There's a debate about this, more so when it comes to Mishloch Manot, because part of the rationale of these mitzvot of Purim is to foster unity, to foster love, and if he doesn't know who he got it from, so he can't love you for it.
Well, you could disguise Matanot Le'Evyonim as Mishloach Manot. So, like, you have a bag in it with, some cookies and
some cash,
and
yeah.
some candy, but then there's also a little bit of cash in an envelope.
That's possible. That's possible. Yeah.
So he may not thank you personally, but he may think, "Oh wow, I got this, I received this gift." And
It's true. So this is a debate. How important this personal acknowledgement, because we do see that it's a central element that to foster love between people. Love between people is personal.
Some people don't want it to be known. I don't know if you've heard about the gold coins in the Salvation Army buckets. There's some rich people that have a tradition every year around the secular holiday season to put a $2,000 gold worth gold coin in one of the red Salvation Army buckets.
I didn't know that.
That's just one example.
Interesting. Yeah. So no, there is. We're going to see that. I think the difference is between Mishloach Manot and Matanet Le'Evyonim. That Mishloach Manot, more we're focused on this personal fostering love, whereas at the end of the day, Matanot Le'Evyonim is getting the money to the poor person. So we sort of divide it that way. So we're it can be a little more impersonal when it's Matanot Le'Evyonim, and even if they don't know who gave it, as long as the money was given, then you fulfill your obligation. Whereas Mishloach Manot, I think we try to be more personal about it, so that you have that relationship developed. Okay, let's read about the laws of Mishloach Manot. Those are the end of we're going to talk about the timing. We're going to talk about a few more other ideas, but they're common to Mishloach Manot and Matanot Le'Evyonim. So we're going to move ahead to Mishloach Manot in section 4 now.
In Israel, there is a lot of people from many countries.
Sorry, where?
In Israel.
In Israel.
Many people from many countries.
Sure.
So doesn't matter if it's Jewish or not.
That's a good question. So, as I many times say, the entire framework of the 613 mitzvot of our Jewish tradition is designed for Jews to Jews. It's a sort of like a closed circle. Of course, there's another framework which is appropriate for between Jews and non-Jews. But whenever we talk about mitzvot, usually the assumption is it's between Jews and Jews. So that's there's a separate issue that we should also have proper relations and deal with the non-Jews. And of course, it's what did we learn? Verachamav al kol ma'asav, that God's mercy is on all of the creations. When did we quote that? We're talking about taking care of animals, not causing pain to animals. So mercy, of course, is good everywhere beyond this circle. But in terms of the mitzvot of giving one to another, and it's usually Jews to Jews. Yeah.
So you say to do a mitzvot, it's let's say in the first way from Jew to Jew.
Correct.
But just imagine I'm at the corner of the street. I see a blind man. He wants to cross the road. I like to help him because it's a mitzvah. I don't ask him,
That's
are
correct.
you a Jew?
Right. It's a big mitzvah to give tzedakah to non-Jews as well. Don't get me wrong. The rabbis make a big point, and they say that for sure, if there are non-Jews that come to collect together with Jews, we give everybody equally, because that would cause jealousy and hatred. So it's very important to make sure that someone comes to the hospital, whether they're Jewish or non-Jewish, we save their life, even on Shabbat. Now that's a different discussion, but of course it's good to help everybody. But fulfilling mitzvot, we're trying to get the precise definitions. In general, mitzvot are between Jews and Jews. Okay, let's move on. Ravi, will you read, or you're not good for you?
I will try to.
Perfect. Page 343, section 4.
Every person must send 2 gifts of food to a friend on Purim in order to increase love between them. Increasing love between Jews is part of the essence of Purim, as it was on Purim that the Jewish people's holiness was revelated. This holiness is expressed in the fact that they cling to God and His Torah, and a spark of this holiness exists in every Jew. Therefore, it is proper to actively express the love between Jews and on Purim.
Yafeh. So increasing the love. That's the two gifts of food. Yossi, go ahead. These gifts must consist.
These gifts must consist of food items in order to enhance the joy of Purim, as it is known that when a person eats good, tasty foods that he received from a friend, the love between them becomes strengthened. Another reason for Mishloach Manot is that some people are not actually poor. They have the ability to purchase basic provisions for the Purim meal, yet are unable to buy foods for a more respectable Purim meal. By sending Mishloach Manot, we can provide them with good food for the Purim meal in an honorable fashion. The law is that one discharges his obligation by sending 2 portions of food to one person. The sages enacted that one must send at least 2 portions so that the gift will be an expression of love. After all, a single portion of food can help a friend avoid hunger. But when one sends 2 portions, it means that he wants his friend to enjoy a variety of foods as well. One who gives more Mishloach Manot in order to increase feelings of love, brotherhood, peace, and friendship between oneself and one's friends is praiseworthy.
The more the merrier. Okay. Let me just reiterate the actual verse in the Megillah from which we derive these definitions. While we're at it, we'll learn a little Hebrew, right? It says, Mishloach means to send, right? Shaliach is an agent. So lishloach is to send. Mishloach manot, portions of food in plural. Mana is a portion. Manot is portions. Matanot is gifts. That's coming up soon. Mishloach manot, ish, one man, lere'ehu, to his friend or to his neighbor. Okay?
What does Mishloach mean?
Send. It means to send, yes.
Shliach.
Like a shliach, yeah. So to send portions, a man to his friend. This is singular. Re'ehu. That's why. And manot is plural. Right? So you have to send 2 portions of food to one person. The continuation of the pasuk is matanot la'evyonim. Evyonim, we explained, it means poor people, but it's the plural. So you have to give to 2 poor people. Matanot, gifts. Gifts is also plural. So you have to have... that's why we have to give tzedakah to 2 poor people, but the Mishloach Manot is the opposite. It's 2 portions to 1 person. And let's see the details of the types of food. That's the verse in Megillat Esther, where it's easy to remember and learn some Hebrew about the plural and the singular. Okay, section 5, Moshe, please.
Types of food for Mishloach Manos. The 2 food portions must be different from each other. For example, one may send bread and meat and rice, fish and eggs, or cake and apples. One may also send 2 portions of meat with different flavors, like cooked meat and roasted meat, or 2 cooked meats taken from different parts of the animal, such that their taste and shape differ. Similarly, one may send 2 types of cake, provided that they look and taste different from each other. One who sends his friend a garment or a book does not fulfill his obligation. Even though these items surely bring joy and express love, the portions must consist of food items. However, once one fulfills his obligation with 2 food portions, he may add additional gifts, if he desires, in order to increase the level of love and brotherhood. One who's...
It could happen. It could happen.
One who sends a live fowl to his friend does not fulfill his obligation, because it is not edible as it is. I could have gone with instant mashed potatoes.
That's he's going there. Don't worry.
As is, it must first be slaughtered, cut, salted, and cooked. Some maintain that even if one sends a raw, uncooked meat, he does not fulfill his obligation. Rather, one must send food portions that are ready to be eaten. One may send canned foods because one can easily open the can and eat its contents. Most poskim maintain that a bottle of noteworthy drinks such as wine, beer, or tasty juice is considered a suitable food portion. Therefore, one may fulfill his obligation by sending 2 such drinks. However, some rule stringently and maintain that a drink is not considered a food portion, even though the halacha follows the majority of poskim. One who wishes to discharge his obligation according to all viewpoints should send at least 1 mishloach manos containing 2 portions of food. Each portion must contain an amount of food worthy of being served to a guest in a respectful manner. Thus, a single plum, for example, is not a large enough portion with which to honor a guest. Therefore, a person who wants one of his portions to consist of plums must combine a few plums together in order for them to be considered a food portion. Some maintain that the volume of each portion must be equivalent to approximately 3 eggs volume. Others add that the portions must be significant according to the status of the giver and the recipient. That is, if they are wealthy, the portions must be distinguished and enjoyable according to their prestige. If, however, they do not view the portions as significant, they fail to fulfill their obligation.
Right, which means the ideal performance.
One should take care to ensure that each food portion contains a volume equivalent to at least 3 eggs, and that it should be significant and respectable in the eyes of both the sender and the recipient.
So you understand that if you're very rich, you can't just give a candy and some bisli, some bamba, because you don't eat that stuff. You don't consider that to be significant. You have a higher standard of living, so you have to give a significant gift that's significant also in your eyes, and also to the person. What if you're a poor person, but you're giving to somebody very respectful?
So we're students. So like
yeah.
the bar is really, really low.
Bar is very low. It can't get much lower. It's okay. But you have to keep in mind the volume, which is very hard to define. But the principle that he said at the beginning is the most important, and that it has to be a respectful portion of food, amount of food worthy of being served to a guest in a respectful manner. So some people just give one candy and one orange. I don't know if that's a respectable food. Two items of food that I don't think you're yotze mishloach manot if you just give an orange and one candy. However, I remind you what he said. You only have to give 1 mishloach manot to one person that's halachically kosher, right? With, let's say, a cake and a bottle of wine. Or he says wine, maybe not. So 2 cakes, a chocolate cake and a vanilla cake. Give that to one person. All the rest, you can keep giving mishloach manot of a candy and an orange to whoever you want. It's still sharing the love, showing people that you care, but you're not fulfilling your obligation because you don't need to. You fulfilled it with your first one. So that's what I do every morning. For a morning after I read the Megillah, I usually take with me 1 mishloach manot, which I'm sure has the volume of 3 eggs, and it's 2 food items, and it's respectable. And right after I read the Megillah, after Shachrit, I go to someone and I give him my mishloach manot, and the rest of the day, I don't have to worry about it. I give lots of mishlochei manot to my neighbors, to whoever gives me, I give back, but I don't have to worry about how, is it precisely kosher or not. Yes, Moshe.
So, first thing, number 1, I would be honored to assist you in fulfilling the mitzvah of mishloach manot by receiving your one.
It would be hard for me to be up on your high standard to meet your expectations, Moshe, though. That I think might be a problem for me.
So like, as an example, like, as a yeshiva student, like, a bag of Bamba taped to a can of Coke.
Is great, you're saying.
Because, like, when we're having guests, it's another guy from the yeshiva coming to our room.
That's good enough. That's probably good enough.
Of laundry powder, and we offer him some Bamba.
Nice. Not bad. I agree. I think you're right. In the context, a bag of Bamba and a Coke is fine. A Coke is definitely one type of food with a certain taste, and Bamba is another one. I don't see the volume of 3 eggs in there, but it's not necessary, really, according to many posts.
Yeah, but
Are you trying to kill the guy? Or?
Yes.
That's a good question.
Give a can of tuna fish.
Yes, that's probably halachically better. It's actually real food that can, the guy can have a meal from. Yes, a question?
I read in a book of halacha that for mishloach manot, we yeshiva student can even exchange between us the breakfast items.
We mentioned it the other day that this was You receive your portion of breakfast, and then you give your plate to your neighbor, and he'll give you his plate, and then you fulfill. Good enough. Although most of us have a little bit of pocket money to be able to come up with one mishloach manot, right? Mishloach manot becomes the expression of this is the mitzvah that we're doing, and this is also the object that we're giving. It's called a mishloach, a package essentially that gets sent, a package of portions, a food package essentially. Yes. Someone else had a question. Yes, Renan.
If I if I volunteer in an organization that give food or give assistance, so I fulfill my obligation.
It's not yours. You're giving other people's gifts. It's very nice. It's a very big mitzvah, but you have to give from your.
If I make the food, I deliver the food.
So I don't think you fulfill your obligation, no, because it has to be from yours, not from somebody else's. Yeah, Amos.
I have a question. I'm living in Moshav where people are sending the gifts. But
Nice.
They're always big. They are not like
Wow.
small.
Wow.
And we because we already did like a couple of years, but
Right.
and I got to the position we can send something small. Then we
Social standards. It's difficult sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it how you deal with this?
That's a social issue. It's hard to live in a community where everybody else is of greater means and you're of lesser means. I definitely don't think you should go into minus for that. Don't. Yeah. Right. It's a challenge for sure. But the first thing is to be assured to fulfill your mitzvah. You only have to give one.
Yeah.
Okay. All the others, it's a social, convention. Just try to match as much as possible. You can try to find things that look good, even though they're cheap. But it doesn't really have to be a lot of food, except for the first one that actually is fulfilling the mitzvah. The rest is, but stay within your means and do the best you can. Obviously, social situations are difficult.
My question is also with because I don't know the
standard.
Not the standard, but the social. The relationship between people,
Okay.
How they take it if I don't, for example, forget to send, or like when that happens a couple of times, and we got
Right.
we didn't send them anything,
Yeah.
and we feel like, oh, maybe now we start to do something and let them. Should we do it this way or how? Because we can feel obligated.
Right, absolutely. So there is this very strong in communities. It's a very strong custom that. You get a mishloach manot, you should give one back. It's just to show that you care for each other. However, there's no obligation in halacha that you must give mishloach manot to whoever gave you. Technically, you give to one person. If you get from 100, you gain 99 food packages. There's nothing wrong with that. Socially, it's important not to offend anybody. And to be part of the community, it means to give sometimes. So there are some people that have this actually happens to. When I'm the rabbi of the community, for example, almost everybody goes to give to the rabbi. The rabbi can't give to everybody. It's just impossible. Sometimes they do. They have they have something ready. They have 100 of them ready, and whenever somebody comes, they give one back, right? But sometimes people just know, okay, the rabbi he receives, he doesn't give to 100. He gives us one or gives a few to his closest friends, but he can't give to everybody. Recycle. We talked about it the other day.
Everyone lines up with their mishloach manos. The Rav starts with one, and the Rav prepares one, and he exchanges with the person in line. The next person comes and they exchange.
Yeah, so the truth is there are some communities where this is a recognized problem.
Just take out the note.
Yeah, that's it.
Everyone stands in a circle, just passes the one to the person.
Right. That sometimes it could be onerous. It could be too much. If everybody gives to everybody, so really 100 food packages, that's a major investment and it's a major project, and it becomes silly because do I really need that? Few candies and an orange. Do I really need this? Another muffin from another neighbor and another muffin from another neighbor. I don't even like muffins. So, so it becomes a game which takes up a lot of time and money. And so some communities came up with a solution. They said, we're going to send around we're talking about closed communities where there's, everybody knows the members of the families. They give ahead of time. They make a lottery.
Oh,
They put all the names in a
Secret
hat.
Santa.
And
As you would say, the secular world.
Oh my goodness.
It's basically the same
everybody
thing. I know
chooses
exactly.
one family,
Alright.
and they give to one family, and then somebody else is going to be picking their name out of a hat, and so everybody gets one mishloach manot. So you don't have to run around all day long making sure I'm not offending anybody. So it's a good custom. Unfortunately, there are some people that don't like it. In other words, sometimes it's not appropriate because there's some people that are just waiting for that personal contact, and for them to get one mishloach manot, they feel, oh, it's not. It used to be more fun. Used to have lots of kids coming, knocking on the door, and giving, because kids get sent from the families. So it's hard to find the right balance. But in some communities, when it becomes really onerous, it could be a good idea. And the truth is, people say all the money that we save by not making those 100 packages and just giving them to everybody, instead we'll give those money to the poor. Right? This is not to the poor, to another family. They don't have to be poor. Right? There's two separate mitzvot. Matanot le'evinim is to the poor. Shloach manot is to your friend, le'reish le're'ehu, to anybody. And so instead of spending lots of money, $100, $1,000, can get to that in some communities. Mishloach manot, and then what did we say? 2 shekels? Let's switch it. Let's spend 10 shekels, 20 shekels, 50 shekels on mishloach manot, and give the 1,000 shekels to a poor person who really needs it. So there's a lot of value to that. It really depends on the community, on the circumstances, on the people. You can't force anybody to do one way or the other, but communities, it's good that they have leadership, and they should consider in our circumstances which is appropriate, which is the best way to do it. But we're learning the specific halachot. 2 types of food to one person, that's the minimum for you to give on mishloach manot. Yes.
Actually, I kind of want to do the lottery thing here.
It's a great idea.
Here
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
The only problem with that is and it leads me into a question. Some of the guys in the English department are not yet halachically Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be problematic? Where if, let's say, I have my big basket that fulfills the mitzvah, if I'm giving it to someone who's not halachically Jewish, does that count?
No, it does not. And what you'd have to do in that case, if you actually get someone who's not halachically Jewish as the person that you have to give to, so then you can give it to him, and then afterwards or beforehand, also without him knowing, without anybody being offended, give to somebody who you know that's Jewish. Give him 2 portions of food in addition. So you can be wise about it. But I want to tell you, there's another custom. There's many schools, and that's something that is really nice. Where Rosh Chodesh is in 10 days from now. Rosh Chodesh Adar. There's festivities the entire month. Now we have 2 months of Adar. Some people already started the festivities. Today is 30 days before Purim. Some schools have this, where they have the same type of system where everybody gets a name from the group, let's say the English department. Everybody secretly gets a name of one person. And then the entire month, or the entire whatever weeks leading up to Purim that are left, you sort of become their secret admirer. You leave them notes, you leave them little candies, you leave them little, it could be flowers, tokens of, it doesn't have to be flowers, it doesn't have to be romantic. It just means that, and then everybody's guessing, wow, well that was nice. I got on my pillow one day, I got a nice gift or whatever it is. So it doesn't have to be, and then you don't know who it is. Everybody's doing nice things for each other the entire month.
A lipstick note written on the mirror.
I'm sorry if I presented it in that way. I mentioned secret admirer just for you to understand the concept of secret.
You wake up with
but
you
really,
wake up in the morning and there's just baskets of food surrounding your bed.
That's right. Everybody then can
security cameras.
People can invest as much or as little as they want, and some people will have a very nice experience of, and some communities, you'll be able to guess in a second who it was that's been giving you food. But you're also trying to secretly give, or gifts of some kind, tokens to somebody else. So it's a cute way of fostering unity, of fostering love between the community. Not necessarily on Purim Day, but both are interesting ideas. I encourage you to follow up on them and speak with Rav Lissman about it and the Madrich and come up with whatever ideas to foster joy and unity in the group. It's a great idea. Yes, please.
Just to say on his point, the problem sorts itself out because everyone in the group, whether they're legally Jewish or not, they're going to be participating. They're going to be giving to someone else. So if you receive and you have to give to someone who's not legally Jewish yet,
correct,
you can easily just give what someone's given you to another person. You don't have to spend 2 gifts.
You'd have 2 lotteries. You'd have one for the people who are halachically Jewish.
That is a bad idea. That is a very bad idea.
No need for that.
No need to make anybody feel bad that they're not yet through the process. It's very easy, as I said, very easy solution. If it happens to be that you get that you're lucky to help somebody who's converting, it's a big mitzvah to help a convert, but not specifically yet halachically Jewish. So you solve that by giving a second one, giving someone else as well. He doesn't even have to know that you know. Here we're quite open about it. Everybody knows that the people are in the process, and some people are before, some people after, some people are born Jewish. We're all together in this, and we're all learning, and we're all trying to grow. But I wouldn't make any separation. That's a bad idea, I think, in my opinion.
Okay,
yes, Russell.
So in the spirit of not trying to segregate
yes.
based on these lines, but for someone who might not have like the financial means to like just give to many people, but could someone who's in the process try practicing the mitzvah by giving to someone else who's in the process? So everyone participates in the holiday spirit.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with giving people gifts, even if they're not Jewish. Just it's not the halachic obligation. If you're not obligated, then you can give the gift, not give the gift. I mean, you should train yourself to be giving mishloach manot by practicing. By all means, it's always okay to give people gifts, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish. Gifts are always allowed, especially if somebody's in the conversion process. So there is this concept that don't give gifts to the nations of the land. This goes back to the Torah, where there was 7 pagan nations that we were commanded to destroy. It doesn't apply for 3,000 years. People are still quoting this. You can't be too nice to the goyim because it says in the Torah. Okay, but that was about the pagan nations that we have a commandment to destroy. We don't have Jebusites and Canaanites anymore. So we're not destroying anybody. It's true that we shouldn't encourage the non-Jewish people who make, not co-religionists. We want the Jewish people to settle the land, and we want to encourage them to, But as I said before, when we live in a mixed society, it's very important to not offend the neighbors, and we give tzedakah to the poor of the non-Jews together with the poor of the Jewish peoples, to not to create any enmity and division. And so in this context, where nobody's a pagan, I hope. Any pagans here? No, I didn't ask, but I think nobody here is really an idol worshiper, and everybody here is trying to, either Jewish or in the process of becoming Jewish. There's nothing wrong with giving gifts to anybody here. Just you have to be careful. I think that to fulfill your halachic obligation has to be to somebody who's already been to the mikvah. But it's very easy to, as we said, most people give more than 1 mishloach manot. So even if 1 or 2 or 9 out of 10 are to non-Jews halachically, then as long as you get 1 that you give to somebody who's actually a born Jew or somebody who's already converted, then it's kosher. Okay, Amos.
Well, I understand that means that we are focusing on the person, not on the family.
It's a good question. We're gonna get to that. There's more details here.
Because there can be families that are
That's right. Yeah, sure.
like Jewish and not.
In that case, it's very simple. If you're giving to the family, you usually don't give 2 gifts. You give 1 gift to the family, and if the case is 1 is Jewish and 1 is not Jewish, you say, I'm giving to the Jewish part of the family, and that's simple. Yes or no? No, okay. So let's go on. We're going to see more details of the mitzvah of Mishloach Manot. Who is obligated? Page 346, section 6. Is there another copy passed down this way, please? Page 346. Who is obligated? And David, go ahead.
Sure. Every Jew is obligated in Mishloach Manot and Matanot Evyonim. Even though women are ordinarily exempt from positive time-bound mitzvot, they must fulfill the mitzvot of Purim since they too participated in the miracle. For reasons of modesty, one should take care that women send Mishloach Manot only to women, and men send only to men. However, one does not need to be particular about this when it comes to Matanot Levionim, as giving charity does not engender excessive familiarity.
Okay, go ahead.
Even a married woman must fulfill these mitzvot. Therefore, a married couple must send two Mishlochei Manot, one from the husband and one from the wife, and each Mishloach Manot must contain at least 2 portions of food. Even though the main objective of sending Mishloach Manot is to foster friendship between the sender and the recipient, it seems that it is unnecessary to specify explicitly that one Mishloach Manot is from the husband and the other is from the wife. This does not detract from the goal of fostering friendship, because it is clear that the Mishloach Manot are from both of them, since they are a married couple. The friendship engendered will thus extend to both of them. For Matanot Le'evyonim, a married couple must give the equivalent of 4 gifts, 2 from the husband and 2 from the wife. It is unnecessary for the wife to give her gifts in person. The husband can distribute them on her behalf. A man may also give these 4 gifts to 2 poor people, each one receiving 1 gift from him and 1 gift from her. The custom today is to give the equivalent of 4 gifts to a Gabbai Tzedkah, who then distributes them to 2 poor people on the couple's behalf. Children who have reached the age at which they are obligated to observe mitzvot are obligated to Mishloach Manot and Matanot Le'evyonim, even though they are still dependent on their parents for support. Since the purpose of Mishloach Manot is to increase love among Jews, the child must send them explicitly in his or her name. Regarding Matanot Le'evyonim, however, the parents may give on their child's behalf. It is proper to train children who have reached the age of chinuch to observe these mitzvot.
Just stop there for a second. So once you're bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, you're obligated independently. So usually kids give their friends. They give their friends Mishloach Manot. Of course, they don't have their own kitchen. They don't have their own refrigerator, and so the parents help them. They buy them the food items, or they bake them themselves, or whatever it is, they give to their friends. Now, that's bar bat mitzvah. There is a younger age even still. Before they're obligated, there's a few different gradations. Obviously, you're not going to train a 1-year-old. They don't know. They can't do anything, right? 2-year-old, 3-year-old, also not. They really don't have any concept of possession. But there is an age. Usually, it's about 8 or 9, which is called gil chinuch. Chinuch means education. So then you start to train children to be adults. They're going to be adults at the age of 12, girls. So by the age of 9, already, you start to train them to do the mitzvot. So that's what he's talking about now. Who have reached the age of chinuch to observe. It's proper to train them, even before they're 12 or 13, to learn how to do these mitzvot. Go ahead. Some do.
Some do so by sending them to deliver the Mishloach Manot.
So even if they don't have their own, they're not obligated to give their own Mishloach Manot, but they're involved. They know what's going on, because the parents want to give to the neighbors' parents. They don't have to go themselves. They can send it with their children. Children can be the agents. He's going to see the details.
Is it like when we had Mother's Day and the kids are preparing the breakfast for the mother? You can compare that?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. That's a good comparison. Go ahead, David.
One even give their children food items of their own so that they can send them to their friends. Regarding Matanot Le'evyonim, some parents give their children money to give to the poor people, while others give money to the poor themselves on behalf of their children. In such a case, the parents educate their children to observe mitzvot by telling them what they did. A poor person who is supported by charity is still obligated in Mishloach Manot.
Hi, somebody asked that question, right? Yeah, perfect.
And Matanot Le'evyonim. If he has only enough food for his own Purim meal, he should trade with a friend, meaning that each one should give the other the contents of his meal. This way, they both fulfill the mitzvah of Mishloach Manot. They should do the same thing regarding Matanot Le'evyonim.
Okay, so that's really, if you're bottom of the barrel, you don't have any cash, and you're in yeshiva, you are entitled to have 3 meals a day. So each one of those meals you can give to someone else, and then you can receive also, and you don't actually have to spend too much if you don't have. So it's important to have wise financial planning and management. And that's a topic for another time. We'll keep going. Yes, Moshe?
So, with the whole men can't give Mishloach Manos to women, let's say hypothetically, I was giving Mishloach Manos to, I don't know, yourself, and I go to your house, I have the basket, I knock on the door, and who opens the door? It's your wife. Am I supposed to just like run away? Wait, if I have written on it the Weinberg family, the family of Weinberg.
I understand. The way it's written, I totally understand your question. I think it's sort of a little bit ignoring the reality. The reality is that we live in mixed society, and when you're to give the mishloach manot from family to family, oftentimes the husband opens the door or the wife opens the door. Sometimes it's the man delivering, and sometimes the woman delivering, and sometimes, of course, this happens. Nobody considers that to be anything untoward or lo tsanua. This is depends on the social setting. So in many communities, when also it depends. Like if you're a yeshiva boy and you come to an elderly lady who's 80 years old, you give her a mishloach manot. I don't think there's anything lo tsanua about that. I don't think there's anything immodest about that. Obviously, when you give gifts, it engenders loves and feelings. So if you have a single friend, and you're a single guy and she's a single girl, and you're both of the right age, so if you want to marry her, maybe it's a good idea to give her gifts. But if you're not in that type of relationship, it's just flirting. That's inappropriate. Mm-hmm. If it's not for marriage, it's inappropriate. That's what he means. That's what he refers to. Okay. You shouldn't use mishloach manot as flirting. But if in the context of a society where people are married and the husbands and wives are together, whether you hand it to the wife or you hand it to the husband is less significant. So I think
give a hint to the girl, it's a good idea.
Not unless it's a marriageable context. Yeah.
Yes. If I wanted to be, let's say I wanted to be Machon Meir on this, would I knock on the door and say, "This is for Rav Weinberg"?
That's what you should do. Yeah, okay. That's absolutely. Yeah, just this is for the Weinberg family. Shouldn't be given as a personal gift. If it's given a personal gift, I can see where it can be misunderstood. But especially if it's got flowers and candy or something. It's just like,
Rob, I think you have a secret admirer.
Yes, Renan. Question.
If I be my wife, so if I give two the matanot levionim,
yes,
to one person, one in my behalf, one in her behalf. So
that's good.
2 times.
Yeah, to 2 different people.
2 different.
To 2 different people. Yeah. You don't need 4 people. You get just 2 people. One from you and one for her. Okay, that's right. That's what we read. Yes, Rovan. Yeah.
Oh, it looks like I missed this.
Okay.
But, is there certain thing? Can you give wine as a gift?
You missed it. Yes, you can, according to most poskim. Some people say you shouldn't, and that's why, at least for one mishloach manot, it's best to give 2 food items, not drink. But most poskim say drink can be considered a portion of food as well. So there's a debate about it, but you did miss it. Yeah, it happens. It's okay. You can make it up. You can make it up. All right, let's keep going. There's a lot of laws to learn, and we're not finished yet. Let's try to finish Mishloach Manot Matanet Devanim, the proper time. Okay, we're looking at section 2, page 348. It should be sent on the Purim day, because it says to observe them as days of feasting and joy, and not nights. So if you give the gifts, these 2 types of gifts, if you give them at night, you're not fulfilling your obligation. It has to be in the daytime. And if you cannot find poor, on top of page 349, cannot find poor people to receive Matanot Levinim on Purim, you should set aside his gifts. On Purim, take the money, put it aside, and then when you see the poor person a week later, give it to them then. That's the best you can do. Thus he fulfills the mitzvah by the very act of setting the gifts aside. Similarly, a Gabbai Tzedakah, he got lots of money, but he gave it out to all the poor people, and then he's left with money. He can distribute them afterwards. However, so that they're a little bit lenient about that. As long as you do the act of putting it aside on Purim, that's good enough. Mishloch Manot is more complicated. Mishloch Manot applies only in the day of Purim itself. That's when there's a mitzvah to increase love and happiness between friends. Therefore, if one is alone on Purim, no one to give to, you can't do the mitzvah. No, one second. Now we have telephones and internet, so you can call a friend. Or write an email, he says. And ask someone to give a gift to someone for you. You can make a shaliach to do it for you if you can't do it yourself. And if you're, the last paragraph says on page 349, when it's concerned you will not find poor people on Purim, you can give the money to the Gabbai Tzedakah before Purim, already now, to all these charity funds that are looking for, to help people. Already now they're telling you, give us money, and even though it's not Purim yet, we'll distribute your money on the day of Purim. And that's good enough. If you're not sure you're going to find somebody on the day of Purim, give it ahead of time, and they'll make a plan to make their rounds and give it to everybody on the day of Purim. Similarly, if you're going to be alone on Purim, you can prepare Mishloch Manot, give it to somebody else who's going to, see someone, and appoint them to do the Mishloch Manot for you. Okay, the last section, section 8, I already discussed, and that's how much money should you spend on Mishloch Manot versus Matanot Levyonim. Finding the right balance. One is social friendliness, and the other one is helping the destitute, helping the poor. And we have to be careful not to ignore, not to have skewed priorities, and to spend so much money on your friends, which is fun and socially enjoyable, and not take care of the poor. So you've got to find the right balance. Yeah, question, Micha.
I have a question. I don't know, maybe if I missed it. But is it also true that people who say, like during the year, special prayer because one of the parents died, is it true that you cannot give them Mishloch Manot?
Good point. There is a custom that you should not, when someone's mourning, for a year of mourning usually, for their parent who died, so you're not allowed to say shalom to them. So as an extension of that, you're not supposed to greet them. They're sort of in a state of sorrow all year long. And so there is a custom not to give them Mishloch Manot as well. They have to give, but not receive. In the end, in the social context, usually if you're married, so then you give to the wife instead. In other words, you give to the family, so they can receive too. But technically, you're correct that someone who's in a status of mourning you should not be giving your Mishloch Manot to him to sort of like break his mourning by some kind of a festive, joyful experience. We'll continue and talk more about the laws of the meal and drunkenness tomorrow morning, B'ezrat Hashem, if I wake up without a hangover. Sorry.
Did I miss the cross-dressing too?
That's coming up tomorrow.
Oh.
Cross-dressing.